Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, thank you very much for being here with us this morning, and I would like to welcome you to this formal opening ceremony for the 2025 ECOSOCC Citizens Forum, which we are starting this morning in this beautiful location of Malabo, Equatorial Guinea. The theme for this year's forum is on reimagining democracy and advancing reparative justice, a new social contract. My name is Nana Osei. I'm the head of programs for ECOSOCC, and I have the pleasure to take you through this morning's session. The theme for this year has been selected, as you know, to be in consonance with the wider African Union Theme of the Year 2025, which I'm sure everybody knows is on reparations. And we know this is a topic that has a lot of connection or resonance with wider African civil society. Those of us at ECOSOCC who have been working on this topic for are able to attest to this because it is largely through the advocacy of African civil society, much of it channeled through ECOSOCC and our partners, many of whom are in this room today, that we've been able to create the political will that now exists within the African Union to pursue this agenda in a meaningful and intentional way. And why we want to give all of our energies as civil society to this important topic, we also want to ensure that, yes, while we pursue reparatory justice for the centuries of harm and injustice that we have suffered as a continent and as a people at the hands of external parties, that we also do not want to forget the injustice within. We want to use the platform that we have with this theme of the year 2025 to explore how we can advance internal and external repair for historical injustices that we've suffered, but also for ongoing injustice that our populations and citizens continue to suffer in different parts of our continent, so that we can ensure that we can heal and make our people whole through reconciliation, healing, and social cohesion. Because after all, if we don't put our own house in order in terms of out there and speak with any moral authority to those who do not want to give to the continent what it deserves. So I think it is important that we also frame this conversation not only externally, but also try to look in the mirror and see what we can do among ourselves as a people to make all of us whole for any injustices that we've suffered historically, but also that we continue to suffer currently. It's an ambitious agenda, I know, but to help us unpack everything, I have the pleasure to call on my esteemed panel that will be addressing us on this morning's opening session, starting with Mr. William Carew, who is the head of secretariat for ECOSOCC. After him, we will hear from Mr. Agustin Nunez from CAICID. CAICID has been a very tremendous partner for ECOSOCC over the many years that we've been mobilizing civil society and trying to channel citizen sentiment on various issues affecting our continent. Thank you so much, Augustine, for your continued support. Then Mr. Oliver Rupke after Augustine, we will hear from Ambassador Salah, representing the African Union Commission. As I mentioned, he is the chair of the AGA-APSA Secretariat at the Commission. And then after him, we'll hear from Mr. Oliver Rupke, who is the president of the European Economic and Social Committee. So maybe for those of you who are not as familiar with the different structural formations within the multilateral bodies that we have, obviously ECOSOCC is the civil society facing organ of the African Union, and the EESC is our counterpart institution within the European Union. And we have had the pleasure over the last several years really to work with them, and really starting from last year to really solidify our engagement through an MOU. So we are very happy again, and grateful for your presence, Mr. Rupke at the head of your delegation, who was also here with us yesterday as well. And then after Mr. Rupke, we will have the keynote statement from the presiding officer of ECOSOCC, Mr. Louis Sheikh Sissoko, who will be formally and officially welcoming us to this year's ECOSOCC Citizens Forum. And so with that as context, I have the pleasure now to invite Mr. William Carew, Head of Secretariat of the ECOSOCC, for his opening statement.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Nana. Let me take the opportunity to recognize Ambassador Salah, our head of the African Governance Architecture and African Peace and Security Architecture Secretariat. I also want to take the opportunity to recognize Mr. Augustin Onez, like Nana rightly said, who has been very instrumental in terms of CAICID partnership with ECOSOCC in the implementation not only for the Citizens Forum, but many other initiatives that we have been working together with CAICID. I also want to recognize Mr. Oliver Bokpe, the President of the European Economic Social Committee, and above all, the presiding officer, of ECOSOCC, Mr. Louis Sissoko, for your leadership over the years. Esteemed members of the ECOSOCC General Assembly Standing Committee, representatives of civil society on the continent, diaspora, colleagues, academia, all protocol observed. It is both my pleasure and privilege to welcome you once again to the 2025 edition of our annual Citizen Forum, a platform that civil society look forward to every year. Permit me to use this opportunity to express my deep gratitude and appreciation to the government and the beautiful people of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea for the warm hospitality extended to us here in this vibrant city of Malabo, and for hosting this important gathering at this time, an emblem of Africa's unity, hospitality, and ambition. We really appreciate all the efforts, and we are hopeful of a continuous support for the duration of our stay and beyond. I would also like to use this opportunity to express our profound thanks to our benevolent and supportive partners who have continued to be with us for the past 4 years in convening the Citizens Forum, among other initiatives. Your support and presence here is a testament to your commitment to fostering democracy and reparative justice towards a renewed social contract between the continent and the world at large, partners, between citizens and their governments, and most importantly, among citizens as key stakeholders for the development of this continent. With you by our side, we are confident of achieving the Union's dream of Agenda 2063, and by extension, the Sustainable Development Goals. Excellencies, distinguished guests, friends, and colleagues, the annual Citizen Forum is a platform that has, for the past 4 years, stood the test of time and going to become the go-to platform and a continental space for African civil society, where the pulse of African civil engagement meets policy. Born out of the recommendation of the 2022 Accra Reflection Forum on Constitutional Changes of Government, calling for a platform for dialogue and reflection among civil society, the media, academics, trade union, governments, and relevant stakeholders The platform is now a safe space for channeling our thoughts and perspectives to our policy leaders. Being convened under the theme Reimagining Democracy and Advancing Reparative Justice, a new social contract, the 2025 Citizens Forum is expected to discuss some gains in our democratic pursuit, as well as the challenges, and provide recommendations for consideration by the relevant policy organs of the African Union. In 2024 in Accra, Ghana, we discussed democracy and institutional resilience. We question why democracy has too often become a procedural without being participatory, and governance being drifted quite afar from the needs of the governed. The resurgence of unconstitutional changes of government, the erosion of institutional credibility, and the continent's vulnerability to external shocks all expose the cracks in our system. The pursuit, however, is not to abandon democracy. It is a call to renew and to remain in it, but more fundamentally, to reframe it. This is why here in Malabo, we are now going to have a deeper conversation. In the face of democracy and justice, we ask ourselves what justice looks like for Africa in the 21st century. This year's theme challenges us to think boldly. What should democratic governance look like in an Africa still burdened by colonial legacy, extractive economies, and global inequalities? How do we build systems where citizenship means not just voting, but meaningful participation? Accountability and access to opportunity. Where is the African situated in the global discussions and decisions? And how are African voices reflected in decision-making processes? These are critical questions that we need to ask and we need to reflect on as civil society. To reimagine democracy is to rebuild trust, to embed dignity, and to create responsive institutions that reflect the aspirations of African people, especially those long excluded: women, youth, Afro-descendant, indigenous group, marginalized communities, as well as the African diaspora. And it is here in this space that the African Union ECOSOCC plays its most vital role as a bridge between the Union and its people. Excellencies, friends and colleagues, our convening here is a moment of profound reflection and urgent responsibility. Across our continent, from Cape Town to Cairo, Bamako to Addis Ababa, Accra to Nairobi, Lusaka to Malabo, citizens are questioning whether democracy, our hard-won ideal, has delivered justice, opportunity, and dignity for all. The call for equity, historical redress, and genuine representation are growing louder. The continent is restless, not for division, but for transformation. And you can see it in some of the uprising around the continent. The 2025 theme of the African Union, Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparation, demands that we confront history not to remain in its shadows, but to forge a new light. This is not merely calling for a conversation about the past. It is also about how the past continues to shape our present, and how only by confronting it can we move forward with integrity and unity. This year's Citizens Forum under ECOSOCC's guidance is our opportunity to answer that call by crafting what we must now pursue, an Africa that we all want. Collectively, a new social contract between African states and African people. A contract where citizens are not passive recipients, but active architects of the governance of our continent. A restorative contract, which is very fundamental. A contract where reparations are not just an event, but a framework for long-term healing, dignity, development, and restoration. Excellency, in closing, I would like to take the opportunity once again to express our thanks and appreciation to the Equatorial Guinea government and its people for their warm hospitality shown to us. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank our partners, especially the European Economic Social Committee, and all the partners, UNDP, CAICID, and all the partners that contributed in making this a reality. Finally, I would like to say, as we gather over the next 2 days, I encourage us not only to discuss, but to co-create. Let this not be just another convening, but a crucible of ideas, strategies, and relationships that will carry forward beyond Malabo. Let us imagine a future where reparation funds education and enterprise, where technology becomes a tool for democratic inclusion and not exclusion, where African youth are not told to wait, but are invited to lead today and not tomorrow. I want to reaffirm our unwavering commitment and resolve to sustaining this particular platform, nurturing its growth and ensuring that it remains a beacon of African people-centered governance, a place where you can comfortably speak and express your perspective on the issues that affect our continent the most. Let us walk forward, not as a fragmented voice, but as a collective force, grounded in justice, guided by memory, and driven by hope. Thank you very much for your audience, and I want to wish all of us a wonderful two-day Citizens Forum, full of engagement, open mind, and let's speak as African citizens with the intention of addressing the critical issues that affect us the most. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karu, for getting us going. So we will proceed down our list of speakers for this morning, and I have the pleasure now to invite Ambassador Salah Ahmad, the chair of the AGA-APSA Secretariat within the African Union Commission. Thank you so much.
I stand before you to launch a complaint to the chair, to the presiding officer, and to the head of the secretariat that all members of this opening ceremony, panelists and panels, and members of the panel are men and no woman is represented. But I want to assure all the women in the room that as a he for she, I will absolutely stand on your behalf and represent you as well. And I hope that next forum, next year with God's grace, inshallah, we will see more women represented as part of the opening ceremony, but also more women represented in the room, as I can see that I have been requested this morning to represent the African Union Commission, and therefore I bring you greetings from the chairperson of the African Union Commission, and also from the Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, as well as the chair of the AGA-APSA platform, and all members of the AGA-APSA platform. It's an honor to stand before you this morning in this very beautiful city of Malabo. And before I proceed, I wish on behalf of the African Union Commission to thank His Excellency, the President, his government, and the great nation of this great country of Equatorial Guinea for having us in this very beautiful city of Malabo. I'm sure you would agree with me that Malabo is indeed an African capital that needs to be recognized as a developed city, clean and well organized and very beautiful and attractive. And I think it's important to make that announcement so then Africans who are trying to visit other countries can put Equatorial Guinea on their list of the wish list, and one day to come and visit this very beautiful city of Malabo. This is my 4th time in Malabo, and every time I come to Malabo, I discover something new, and I discover something beautiful, and I discover something nice. And above all, I always discover and rediscover how kind and nice our African brothers and sisters here in this country of Equatorial Guinea are, and how welcoming they are, and how kind they are. And that is why we should all include or add Equatorial Guinea to our wish of cities to visit, but also include Equatorial Guinea as part of the countries that we need to really speak about proudly as Africans. This is absolutely important as we go back to tell the story of how beautiful this city is. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our head of the Secretariat, Mr. William Kuru, said it all. This year, our heads of state and government declared it as the year of reparation, justice for African and the Africans in the diaspora. And today's theme is also timing as we try to link reparation to justice, but also to state building as well. But instead of reimagining democracy, I think we need to begin the process of realizing good governance and democracy in Africa. We have been imagining and reimagining democracy and good governance for a very long time as Africans, but the question is now, what could be done to promote the process of good governance, rule of law, democracy, constitutionalism in Africa? We have been witnessing a number of unconstitutional changes of government in many parts of, or some parts of the African continent. We have been seeing conflicts emerging in many parts of Africa, of the African continent. We have seen instability instead of peace and security. We have seen also terrorism. It is spreading around the Lake Chad and the Sahel region and many other parts of Africa. So the question is, when Africa really will be a united, peaceful, and prosperous continent as we've been dreaming of? What could be done to promote an Africa that is peaceful and prosperous and united? What role could be played by the civil society in particular, since we are all gathering here as civil society? Of course, the responsibility is on our government to promote peace and security. But each and every African citizen, in Africa or abroad, has also a responsibility to promote peace and security in Africa. The promotion of peace and security must be seen as a collective responsibility. But also, as we address issues related to reparation today in this meeting, I think it is quite important that we should not see the financial part of it more than we should see the justice part of it. Africa and the African people have been going through injustice for a very, very long time. We are not represented in the Security Council of the UN as permanent figures. We are not represented in many of the committees of the United Nations as we're supposed to be. So that is also another dimension that we need to really deliberate on and discuss. How Africa can be actively and effectively participating in all UN entities, including the Security Council of the UN. It is also quite important that we look into reparation from another dimension, the dimension of the debts that is many African countries are facing. What could be done to relieve these African countries from all these debts that they have been struggling with for the last 3-4 decades? How can our African countries stand alone on their feet and begin a developmental process that will take care of the well-being and the welfare of its African or of the African citizens. This is what we really need to discuss. An issue that is not only geared into reparation, but also includes, to some extent, state building, as we are trying to build the Africa we want and the Africa we deserve. The African Union Commission, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as the Secretariat of the African Union, count heavily on the participation of civil society in the African governance affairs. And that is why ECOSOCC has been established as the civil society parliament within the structure of the African Union. So any and every voice of a civil society matter to us in the African Union and the African Union Commission. So therefore, we don't really take this kind of meetings for granted, but in fact, we look into this kind of meetings as a platform and a space for you to express your opinion on how we can collectively promote the Africa we want and build the Africa we deserve. Before I conclude, I wish to leave you with 2 or 3 recommendations. Number one, the governance of Africa must be seen as a collective responsibility. Why? Because it is indeed a collective responsibility that each and every citizen must be part of this process of governing our continent. This includes governance across the board, to include also governance of natural resources and all other issues that are included. Secondly, it is quite important that we as a young continent, that we empower our youth. Since the youth are almost more than 65% of this population of the continent, we need to empower the youth, and we need to engage the youth, and we need to make sure the mindset of the youth is changed to believe that they are the leaders of today and the leaders of tomorrow. They are not only the leaders of tomorrow, but they have to start leading today, and this is quite important. So then the African youth can indeed become agents of change instead of agents of destruction. Thirdly, and this is quite important, we must not neglect our African women. We must empower our African women, and we should not really, it is not really about giving them or doing them a favor by engaging them in our governance affairs, but in fact, we are giving them the right place that they are supposed to be part of the process of promoting good governance, democracy, and rule of law on the continent. Because without our African women, we will not be able to proceed with our agenda, the implementation of Agenda 2063, building the Africa we want and the Africa we deserve. So these are 3 issues that I wish to leave you with, and I hope during the deliberations of you today and tomorrow, you will be able to capitalize on all of these issues, so then we can have an outcome statement that will also contribute to the advancement or to the implementation of the theme of the year, as well as the work of the African Union. Once again, I wish to thank the President and the government and the people of Equatorial Guinea for hosting us in this very beautiful city of Malabo. And I wish to thank ECOSOCC, the presiding officer, and the Secretariat, and the head of the Secretariat for inviting the AGA-APSA to be part of this engagement, or this part of this forum. And I wish you all fruitful deliberations. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Salah, for these remarks. I now have the pleasure to invite Mr. Agustin Nunez Vicandi, speaking to us here on behalf of Ambassador Antonio de Almeida Ribeiro, Acting Secretary General of the International Dialogue Center of CAICID. Agustin, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Janet. Excellencies, distinguished partners, and friends, On behalf of the Acting Secretary General of the International Dialogue Center, CAICID, Ambassador Antonio Dalmeda Ribeiro, it is an honor to a 2025 ECOSOCC Citizens Forum. Allow me to extend our deep appreciation to the African Union, the ECOSOCC Secretariat, and the government of Equatorial Guinea for convening this timely and urgent dialogue. This year's theme, Reimagining Democracy and Advancing Reparative Justice, a New Social Contract, invites us to collectively reflect on the foundations of dignity and inclusion that must underpin democratic renewal. As we move forward towards the realization of the Agenda 2063's vision for a prosperous, peaceful, and integrated continent, we must ask, who has a seat at the table, whose voices shape our policies, and whose values guide our systems? CAICID has worked for over a decade to build inclusive dialogue platforms across Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and Europe. Our approach is grounded in partnership with regional institutions, civil society, religious communities, and traditional authorities. In Africa, CAICID has actively supported platforms that bring together religious and traditional leaders with policymakers, women's groups. Our work includes mediation support, peace building, climate resilience, and capacity development for local dialogue practitioners in contexts as diverse as Nigeria, the Central African Republic, Mozambique, Rwanda, and the Sahel. These partnerships are rooted in mutual respect and led by local ownership, cultural sensitivity, and a belief in the transformative power of inclusive dialogue. Based on this background, we are convinced that religious and traditional actors must be fully included in all processes that advance Agenda 2063, and CAICID's contribution to the AU is focused exactly on securing such engagement. These actors are not only spiritual leaders, they are trusted community voices, mediators in times of conflict, educators in times of uncertainty, and caretakers of